when I was 19. I worked as a house sitter during summer breaks. It was an easy way to earn extra money, and most jobs just required me to water plants or feed pets. But one house I sat for in 2017 still haunts me to this day. The house belonged to an old couple who had moved to a retirement home. Their niece, Linda, hired me to watch the place while it was being prepped for sale. It was a massive, old Victorian home on the outskirts of town, creaky, gloomy, and surrounded by dying trees. But the pay was good, so I didn't complain. Linda handed me the keys and left me with one strange warning. Don't mess with the clock in the living room. Just leave it alone. I didn't ask questions. Old people have weird attachments to things, I thought. The clock she referred to was an antique grandfather clock. It stood in the corner of the living room, tall and intimidating. Its glass face was cracked, and the pendulum didn't swing. It wasn't working, or so I thought. That first night, I settled into the guest bedroom upstairs. The house was unnervingly quiet, too quiet. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to an odd sound. It was faint but clear. It was the sound of a clock ticking. Confused, and wandered downstairs. Sure enough, the noise was coming from the grandfather clock. I flicked on the lights, but the clock hands were still stuck at 3 o'clock, unmoving. Yet it ticked. I chalked it up to old mechanics and went back to bed. The second night was worse. I was watching TV in the living room when I heard footsteps coming from upstairs. Slow, heavy footsteps. I froze. I was supposed to be alone. I grabbed a flashlight and crept up the stairs. I checked every room, every closet, nothing. But when I came back downstairs, the grandfather clock was ticking again. This time, the hands had moved to 3:15. I stood there, staring at it, chills crawling up my spine. The final night was the breaking point. I woke up around 2:45 a.m. to a loud banging sound. It echoed through the house, like someone was slamming doors repeatedly. My heart raced as I followed the noise to the living room. The banging stopped as soon as I entered. The grandfather clock, however, was no longer ticking. The hands had moved to 3:30. As I turned to leave, I felt it. Something watching me. I turned back to the clock. The glass face, once shattered and cracked, now showed a perfect reflection. And in it, I saw someone standing directly behind me. A tall, shadowy figure loomed over me in the reflection, its face pale and hollow. I whipped around, but there was nothing there. When I turned back to the clock, its hands were spinning wildly, faster and faster, until they stopped at 3:33. I ran out of the house that night and refused to go back. Linda later told me that the clock belonged to the original owner of the house, a man who had died at exactly 3:33 a.m. The house has since been sold, but to this day, I can't hear the sound of a ticking clock without feeling sick.